Hi people! My makeup today is inspired by GQ China's Heat Stroke. Absolutely amazing photo shoot. Love it. That man is so hot. It's in honor of, today we're talking about Marineford, the site of Ace's execution. So in honor of Ace and his fire fruit. We're getting a little hot today. We're getting a little spicy. Okay, I'm trying my best. Girl, I forgot my makeup palette that has all the colors in it, so it's not like I could do freaking fire makeup or something. Okay, I'm trying my best out here. Okay, the cosplay, the makeup has gone downhill. It's gone downhill, but I'm trying my best. As I said, Marineford, or the site of Ace's execution, breaks into mayhem as Whitebeard and Luffy's respective posses fight to save him. On Savati Archipelago, monitors are set up to broadcast the execution. The 7 warlords are sent as backup, and 3 marine admirals, Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru, sit in waiting, looming over Ace. Sengoku and Garp sit on the side and discuss Ace, with Sengoku explaining he must tell the audience something important. He goes up before the world and tells them Ace is Gold D. Rogers' son. As a war breaks out in the fight for Ace's life, concepts like justice and truth are called into question. We discussed in the In This Lobby video similar issues that were starting to arise in the show. That justice is a false premise created by those in power, which we talked about in relation to, CP9, the world government, and our real world equivalent, NATO and the CIA. How these institutions praise concepts like justice and freedom while taking it away from others. We'll discuss both Marineford and post-war in this video, tying together this final message of how the government manufactures consent or creates this false narrative to carry out their interest. With Marineford and this false narrative of justice, and post-war and this false narrative of who deserves humanity. I faked my makeup for it to be hot, but with all these freaking lights, it's actually freaking hot. But before we get into the video, subscribe. I have Instagram, TikTok, Discord, where you can connect with your fellow community members on all 3, but especially the Discord, which girl, I'm a noob at Discord, okay? I'm a freaking noob. I didn't know that the freaking link expired. Like, why would they do that? Who will want that? Why would you want the link to expire? I've never heard of such a thing. Never heard of such a concept, but it's fixed now. So if you want to join, you actually can. It's linked down in the description, and it's also at the top on the home page of my YouTube channel or something like that. So access it, join it. They watch movies, they watch TV shows, they have a good time in there. Share your pets, share your art, share your love for anime. It don't matter what the frick it is. You can talk about the videos in there. It don't matter. So much to consume, so much to enjoy. So why not do it? I really don't understand why not. Other than that, we have the Patreon, where we got the $5 tier where you get the audio, the scripts, the outlines, and then you can get the $10 tier, which has also where you can get sneak peeks to videos before anyone else does, girl. Or if you just want to support, give $1. You can do that on Patreon or on here on YouTube, where you get emotes, put them in the chat, flex on everybody. You know how it is. I'm done with my spiel. Let's get into Marineford and media's role in the war. Now, Marineford is the culmination of the past few arcs. Since Sabati, we've been following Luffy as he journeys across the Blue Sea to save his brother. Honestly, some of the best arcs in the show so far, in my opinion. But we'll get to the tier list later. Oh my god, I'm so excited for that. I'm filming it right after. I'm so freaking excited. Besides, though, before we get to the political implications of the arc, the overarching narrative is family and love. From Ace's fractured relationship with his dead parents, to the story of how he found family in Whitebeard, to his beloved younger brother risking it all to save him. As I said, Sengoku completely outed Ace's father as Gold D. Roger, or the infamous pirate who found the One Piece and left it all for, everyone to find later down the line. Which sends us back in time to learn the beginnings of how Luffy and him became brothers. Essentially, Roger entrusted Garp, who had chased after him all his career to protect Ace and his mother Rouge. After his execution, the Marines immediately do a witch hunt to find his child. Now, this is the crazy part. Rouge managed to hold Ace in her womb for 20 months in order to protect him. Now that's a good mom. Because of this feat, though, she only got to hold Ace for a second before she died, leaving him alone in this cruel world. With no mother, and as the son of a father who everyone wanted dead, Ace felt angry and unloved. The rest of this story will resume when we get to post-war. His relationship with Whitebeard, though, was Ace finally finding that family. After Ace had set out to sea whenever he was like 18, I believe, he created his own pirate crew called the Spade Pirates. He wanted to make a name for himself, become the strongest. He wanted Whitebeard. But when he finally got the chance to encounter him, it didn't go so well. Whitebeard loved his spirit, though, and passion, so he asked him to become his son. Ace resisted, and even after being kidnapped by Whitebeard, he tried to kill him 100 times. This man's insane. But once he saw that Whitebeard surrounded himself with lost men who wanted to belong just like him, he couldn't resist but become one of his sons. Literally the sweetest, most beautiful moment probably in the entire show. I mean, there's a reason why I'm pretty sure this arc is one of the most popular One Piece arcs in the entire show. At least that's what they said when they put it on Netflix. We only get to see Whitebeard for like a brief time. We see him in the lead up to Marineford, and then obviously we see him all of Marineford. And we honestly don't even see Ace that much in the entire show. We see him like briefly in Alabasta, and then we see him as he's about to get executed, and that's pretty much about it. But even with these brief glimpses at these characters, we get a sense of how much they mean to Luffy, and in turn, we end up loving them. Like, just remembering Ace's death, like him smiling before he dies, knowing that his brother will like be okay without him, like that's just like this, like that's just so beautiful. Like, even though pre-time skipping, even like it until Whole Cake Island, the animation in One Piece, let's just be honest, it's not that great. Okay, let's just be honest, especially when you see Egghead, when you see Gear 5, when you see Peak, you're like, it's not that great. But the storytelling is impeccable. It don't matter if the budget isn't hitting, because the storytelling is. You see what I'm saying? I think the story of Found Family is something a lot of us can relate to and probably hits home, especially during the holidays. There's a lot of people out there that, are estranged from their families, were disowned by their families because they're like, gay or trans or different, or there's just a disagreement for whatever reason between family members. So a lot of us end up finding family and friends and people that we know will always be there for us, and people that we chose, which sometimes can be more powerful than the people you were born with. You know what I'm saying? So if you found that family, always, a rule of life, always do what Luffy would do. Protect those people, fight for them, because let's just be honest, there aren't that many people in life that will have your back. So if you found them, freaking cherish them. But now to get to the political implications of the arc, like we were talking about in the intro, justice. It's not about doing what is right, but is about winning. If I remember that correctly, the idea is repeated several times in the arc, but starts with Doflamingo's comment. The winner will become the justice of the world. Essentially meaning that the winner will be able to mold the narrative of what occurred that day. The winner holds the truth. And we see them implementing this in real time whenever, towards the end of the arc, whenever they start to turn off the video transponder snails on Sabati Archipelago. So no one there will see the true outcome of what occurred that day. No one will know who actually won. Whoever won will be able to mold, once again, that narrative in their image. It reminds me kind of like when police turn off their body cams, or how wars, at least in America, aren't as heavily broadcast as they used to be. You know, Vietnam was the first time, I'm pretty sure, in American history where people saw it was broadcast every single day. And we see how that went for the American government. You know, when people see the crazy stuff that the American military and government is doing abroad, they're like, you're not doing this for me because I didn't ask for this. And they start to protest, and that just doesn't, that's not what we want, right? So as a result, nowadays the American military is in several places. I'm pretty sure there's was 800 military bases all across the globe, but we don't know where the frick they are. We don't think about it. That's not something that's on our minds. So even though people are constantly being deployed places, we have no clue where. We don't care. Kind of reminds me of that dynamic of, once again, you can mold the narrative of what's going on those military bases, why those troops are there being deployed anywhere, if people don't even know where they are, you know? Ignorance is bliss type of thing. It's their effort to not show their unjustifiable violence to the world. And honestly, with how like bloodthirsty military figures like Akainu are, like, if you truly knew and saw the events of that day, people might, you know, think differently about who was on the right side. You know, was it justifiable to execute Ace, or was the world government going a little too far, you know? Because Akainu is a freaking demon. Oh my god, he's disgusting, which we'll get to in a later video whenever like Akainu, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but whenever Akainu and Aokiji are like fighting for that position or whatever in Punk Hazard, like, he's such a demon, dude. And it kind of plays into a dynamic that we talked about before, where like the police, if you're a good cop, you either leave early, you know, it's like the Batman quote, you either die the good guy or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I think that's perfectly how policing works as an institution. I think a really good example of us molding justice in our image, reworking the definition of justice, is Bush's lie. You ever heard the saying, Bush lied, people died? 2023, in fact, marked the 20-year anniversary of Bush's lie, or what we call the Global War on Terror, or the invasion of Iraq. He and Dick Cheney coordinated a plan to invade Iraq post 9/11. Yes, the vice president, Dick Cheney. Yes, the father of Liz Cheney, who Kamala paraded around. Yes, the war criminal Dick Cheney, who had an abysmal approval rating at the end of his term. Yes, that guy. You see my frustrations with the Democratic Party for like who thought that was a good idea? Who thought that was a good idea? Because nobody likes Dick Cheney and nobody likes his daughter. That's for damn sure. She's a demon herself. Dick Cheney basically wanted to become the Henry Kissinger of the Bush administration, this puppeteer figure who was pulling the strings, especially in regards to foreign policy. You know, normally vice presidents are regarded as this position that is a lame duck position. They don't do nothing. But he wanted to have his say, especially when it comes to foreign policy. They used the events of 9/11 and dynamics like Islamophobia to prime the American people into consenting into that war. There's a great movie called Vice that actually follows Dick Cheney and how we got to the Iraq war. I'm pretty sure there's a scene in the movie where they show them doing focus groups to figure out how to message around what would make it acceptable in the public's eyes. Essentially, they lied about Saddam Hussein having weapons of mass destruction. Like, none of it was true. It was all a lie, purely made to help America gain even more control in the Middle East. And even after the death of Saddam Hussein, the assassination, the US still has troops stationed in Iraq to this day. All of these events are a part of a bigger story of the US creating this stronghold in the Middle East over the past like 50 years. the government has successfully been able to convince the American public that events like Iraq were in our interests. They're for our freedom, so we can live in peace. That is the mindset in America. We have been brainwashed into believing that is true. We just blindly accept that that's what it is. Military has to be deployed in these places, especially the Middle East, to keep the barbaric Muslims away, to protect our freedoms, when in reality, whenever you have dynamics like Iraq, which I think the majority of the public realizes and accepts was a lie, it wasn't for our freedom at all. But when you have dynamics like that where the government is just completely lying to you, you realize that this is not in our interest, it's not in our name. Because Afghanistan and Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. They weren't involved in that at all, and yet they were still invaded. They didn't have weapons of mass destruction. We have just been convinced that all Arabs are barbaric and the same, so they must be evil too. They must have all planned it together, When in reality, it was our ally, which is also a Muslim country, but it's Saudi Arabia, who is our ally, that actually funded and facilitated 9/11 in the first place. I'm pretty sure, was it like 17 of the hijackers were Saudi on the plane, and the Saudi government helped facilitate the whole situation. And we even see a similar thing happening today in America's media, especially with the coverage surrounding Israel and Palestine. This whitewashing, once again, of the atrocities in Gaza, this rewriting of what justice and morality means. You think these would be clear-cut concepts, You would think that good and bad is like something that, a child knows. When it comes to these institutions like mainstream media, they can so easily twist those concepts that you thought you knew so well, that you thought you had a firm grasp on. And it's all in the effort so that the American public won't question our alliance with an apartheid state. There's this saying that Israel is the most moral army, but honestly, I don't personally think that a military or an army can be moral, but especially not with the price tag of occupation, 75 years of occupation and genocide, ethnic cleansing, that don't sound moral to me. Okay, 40,000 dead, possibly hundreds of thousands of Palestinians dead, buried under the rubble, children, women, innocent, unarmed, defenseless. That doesn't sound very moral to me. At least that's not my idea of morality. But once again, it is the state media, similar to in Marineford. The world government controls these transponder snails. They control the newspapers and the leaflets that fly across the blue sea. They control the media, and they decide what justice means. The American project from the Cold War to the War on Terror is this mindset that justice is determined by the winner. We are the definition of this concept that Oda is talking about in Marineford. It's kind of hard for me to believe that Oda didn't derive this message from entities like NATO and the CIA and just the American government in general. Post-war further compounds on the bones that were built in Marineford. We discover more about Luffy and Ace's brotherhood while also being introduced to Luffy's second brother, Sabo. Garp had left Ace in the custody of Curly the Dawn, this abrasive, loud bandit who lives in these remote mountains. While Garp was originally also taking care of his grandson after, some years after dropping off Ace in these mountains, he eventually also sent Luffy to live with the Dawn as well. Luffy spent all of his time, once he got there, trying desperately to become friends with Ace, who had absolutely no interest in entertaining such a thing. But when Luffy, after weeks of trying, successfully followed after Ace and got involved in he and Sabo's scuffle with the Blue Jam pirates, well, those events led ultimately to them forming this brotherly bond. Especially after Luffy refused to rat both of them out to the Blue Jam pirates and instead chose to get brutally assaulted at 5 years old. This show was kind of insane, seeing how loyal Luffy was and how, I guess, trustworthy he could be. They built their pirate fortress together, you know, hiding away from the world, and they sealed the deal, becoming brothers with a glass of sake. I genuinely did not expect to like this arc as much as I did. It's an arc that primarily takes place in a flashback, but I think it just helps to seal the significance of Ace's death. Like, without it, you would not have as deep of a connection to Ace. Even after seeing him die, I think that really just sealed the deal of Ace's motivations, why he is the way he is, you know, how obviously they became brothers in the first place. You know, it just answered a lot of questions that were needed. Ace is this kid that was so angry that he was born into this world that hated him, but he could finally, at his death, you know, leave this world knowing that he had people that loved him, that he wasn't as unlovable as he originally thought. It's just so gorgeous. And I think there's also a part of that I can relate to in Ace. You know, I'm a bit of an Ace. You know, that feeling of feeling like you'll never be loved. It's stories like this, you know, I think it sounds so silly because it's an animated TV show, but it's really stories like this that make you feel like, okay, well, maybe one day, you know, maybe there's hope for me. Maybe I'll find my Luffy, my little bestie, that'll defend me till I die in a war where I get my chest blown through with an iron hot fist, magma fist, you know, hopefully I don't go out like that. That sounds awfully painful, but you know, you get what I'm saying. Hopefully we all as a collective find people that are as loyal and as gorgeous and amazing as Luffy. Oh my god, I love him. That's my boy. I have a post-war sticker. Where is it? Where's my post-war sticker? Oh, here we go. Right here. You see it? Both of these are post-war. One of my that's my favorite sticker. So cute. I also got Ace right here. Cute. If we are to get into the politics of post-war, you know, once again continuing this idea of like false narratives being pushed on us by the government or by like these hierarchies and structures within society, the most significant aspect politically is definitely Sabo's relationship to the nobles or the wealthy elite class and the pirates that live in these slums. So to paint a picture, Sabo for weeks at the beginning of the arc has escaped from Hightown, I believe is what the town is called, where the nobles live, where his family is from, where he's originally from, to live in the slums of the Great Terminal. Well, technically he kind of lives like a little bit outside of the Great Terminal with Ace and the little tree house, but he chose to basically escape this beautiful, lush, luxurious town to basically be homeless. Even at a young age, Sabo recognizes the harm of his class position and sides with these poor criminals instead. They treat him like a human, unlike the nobles who only care about elitism and material gain. Sabo's father there's just so many demons, okay? Sabo's father freaking sucks and only cares about dragging him back to live with them in Hightown because he needs him as a successor. His parents care more about the hierarchy and the optics of their family than about their actual family. There's a scene where Dragon has a run-in with Sabo. I think it's when Sabo is trying to escape to warn the people in the Great Terminal about the nobles' plan to burn it down. Fides and Dragon about what's going on, and you see that Dragon is like touched by this noble finally breaking from the mold and recognizing these atrocities. He sees a part of himself in Sabo, since we learned that Dragon was also from the Goa Kingdom, or you know, where the High Town is. He was from this exact same town as Sabo is, which I think kind of goes with the theory that a lot of people have that he's not Garp's son but was married into the family. I don't know if that will ever be confirmed or not. I guess it's not really that important of a detail, because I think he's alluding to the fact that he's a noble, and to my knowledge, like, Garp was never a noble, so that's why I'm like, maybe he married into the family. I think that would make more sense. But Sabo's connection to Dragon is actually pretty important later on. You know, that detail about dragon seeing himself in Sabo becomes important, especially in the arc that I'm in right now, Dressrosa. I don't even know if I'll make a video on Dressrosa because so far there's not like a whole lot of to pick out, you know. There's just, it's the normal stuff. It's about slavery, it's about some random dude coming and taking over an island, you know, the usual One Piece stuff. We've talked about this, you know. So I don't know, I guess there's a little bit of like arms dealing, but there's not much new in Dressrosa. But why am I skipping ahead? Like, that's several arcs ahead. Sabo's father also bribes the police to let him back into society. Once again, this dynamic of like the elite and the police working together. There's long been this dynamic, you know, we call police class traitors. We don't just say ACAB because of their treatment of black people, which honestly, of course, is enough to say ACAB. Killing 1,000 people a year. I also learned recently that I think they killed, was it like 100,000 pets a year? Like, these dudes, and they just get away with this. Like, I think that's insane. There should be no institution where you can just kill people willy-nilly. 1,000 people, 100,000 pets. Like, are you insane? But we don't just say ACAB because of the disproportionate targeting and arresting and killing of black people, but also they are class traitors. Essentially, they are working class technically, but they work in the interest of the wealthy elite. Historically, whenever the police were first formed as an institution, they were mostly in their beginnings used by like corporations and wealthy business owners to stomp out unions, just beat protesters and get them to leave and stop demanding for basic working rights, which obviously, if you are a normal human being, you should be very happy that those people unionize, because you wouldn't have a Friday off, you wouldn't have a weekend, you wouldn't have sick leave, you know? So if I were you, I'd be very happy about that. We don't want to side with the people that were trying to mess that up, and they still do it to this day. So it's once again this dynamic of the elite and the police historically working together. We see Oda representing that in post-war. And also the nobles have this really grotesque features, even the children do. And I think it's obviously Oda's way of visually communicating how disgusting these people have become, how little, because there's no other humans in One Piece that look like these nobles. It's only them. And it's to show just how little humanity is left in them, how alien they have essentially become. Now, the burning of the Great Terminal, once again, is this like junkyard area where all of the pirates just like congregate and they try and like scavenge for parts, I believe, to like, you know, sell and make money, I believe is what's going on. It's been a while since I've watched post-war. I think the burning of Great Terminal is a really interesting dynamic. Trapping all of these poor homeless criminals into an enclosed area and then burning them alive. It's very horrific. The king tricked the Blue Gem Pirates, who, as I mentioned earlier, were freaking assaulting Luffy, into thinking that he would become a noble, all the while he would be subject to the same fate. The king hired the Blue Gem Pirates to carry barrels of oil and gunpowder into the Great Terminal, only for them to wait at the doorsteps, wait at the gates, to be let in, to become nobles, but little did they know the door wasn't opening. They were burning alive with all the rest of them. It reminds me of this mindset that we have mainly in like capitalist societies. I would say just America, but I feel like it kind of just exists in any capitalist society probably. This like pick yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. We have absolutely no class solidarity. The working class constantly is infighting, constantly trampling over each other, over our fellow neighbors, in hopes that we'll someday become that wealthy elite, that we'll get there too. But just like the Blue Gem Pirates, we don't realize that they will burn us all alive with each other, you know, metaphorically, so to speak. We have, like I said, no class solidarity as a result of this mentality, as a result of us just believing that like there's some way to make it out of our class position. But honestly, in my opinion, I think societies, especially in America, kind of work like, is a caste system like the best way to put it? Like, there's this hidden hierarchy that we're in that structurally is not impossible to get out of, but very hard. It especially the more marginalized you are, the harder it is to get out of. This idea that, you know, we can pick up ourselves by our bootstraps and get to the top is just idiotic, and it should never, of course, come at the cost of someone else. You know, just like Blue Jam was willing to burn all of these other criminals alive. It should never come at the cost of your fellow neighbors, especially. But the act of burning the Great Terminal is this dehumanization and shame that is often intersectional in the real world. It could be shame on the basis of class, you know, homeless encampments and efforts to out-legislate them. There's actually a Supreme Court case decision in Oregon recently that outlawed homeless people from sleeping outdoors, which is insane. Freaking insane. Basically outlawing homelessness. I mean, of course there's shelters, but that means that there can't be homeless encampments, which a lot of homeless people rely on, of course. And even in other countries like Japan, they have these efforts to hide their homeless population in like underground and internet cafes away from society, which I don't think is a good solution either. Or like it could be destruction of lower income neighborhoods, gentrification, outpricing essentially poor low income families from their houses so that they have to leave these neighborhoods, which in turn could also lead to homelessness. I'm pretty sure that is the number one cause for homelessness in this day and age, is people being outpriced of the housing market, because housing is a commodity. There's so much wrong. Oh god, there's so much wrong in this world. Or it could be shame on the basis of segregation. There's incidents like the MOVE bombing in Philadelphia, where there was a standoff between MOVE, which is a black liberation group, and the Philadelphia police in 1985, which resulted in the police dropping explosive C4 from a helicopter on an occupied house. What the frick? And there are, of course, other examples of black people being forced out of these areas that they were originally occupying historically, like Seneca Village. If you don't know, Central Park was actually built on the top of a black neighborhood. They destroyed this black neighborhood to build Central Park. So when you visit Central Park in New York, just remember that. I mean, enjoy yourself, but also remember that. Then, of course, there's the famous Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, where a white mob set fire to Greenwood neighborhood, or Black Wall Street. This attitude that the nobles have is very Israel coded as well. There's a scene where this little girl asks, why are the people in the Great Terminal not humans? And her dad answers, what they shall reap, what they sow. They could have avoided their fate by being born nobles. And it reminds me of this attitude, especially in regards to Israel-Palestine, this attitude that Palestinians deserve what's happening. Or even if we go back to the Holocaust, the Jews deserve what is happening to them. They all deserve it. They hold this inherent quality that makes them inferior to us, that makes them deserve to get burned alive in the Great Terminal, to be bombed endlessly. What they have done is so atrocious that they are human animals, that they deserve to be pummeled just for existing, just for being born on this land. It's fascism at its finest, from class to racial segregation. I mean, essentially that's just what post-war is about. If we are to boil it down, is basically just fascism, or at least this like fascist attitude and like the beginnings of it. This in-group, out-group dynamic. Obviously the nobles are the in-group. They're superior to these criminals in the Great Terminal that are fighting for their freaking lives. These definitely not depressing stories of how in the world of One Piece and our world, the government creates false stories and narratives will end out our pre-time skip coverage. These false narratives, as we covered, could be to justify a war, or they could be to create a hierarchy an in-group, out-group dynamic among classes or races. Next One Piece video, like I said, will be the ranking of each pre-time skip arc, which I'm super excited for. It should come out, it should be the next video after this one. You know, girl, I'm slow at editing, so I'm not gonna say it's gonna come out right away, but it should be before the end of this month, hopefully. I'll talk through my feelings about each arc. It should be a lighter, more fun video, but I want to say thank you to all my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me. Like I said, some of you guys have been supporting me for a year. Insane. Amazing. You guys are amazing. Rock stars. Let's go. YouTube members, thank you so much. Thank you, Morrow. Thank you, F. McSkarkin. Period Poo. Love you all. See you in the next video. Okay, bye.